How do you go from an unemployment nightmare to your dream job? Welcome back to the podcast that shows you even the most successful people had to start from the bottom. This is I'd Quit But I'm Broke, presented by Student Beans, and I'm your host, Matt Kerridge. Each week we get a different celebrity guest on to dust off their CVs and share their horror stories and funniest moments for our amusement. And this week it's presenter Rachel Stringer. Thank you very much for coming on, Rachel.
Oh, thanks for having me, Matt.
So for those listeners who aren't so familiar with your work, could you just give a rundown of what exactly you are presenting at the minute?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, as you mentioned, presenter, if actually on my strapline, you know when you have your signature at the bottom of your emails, it's presenter, speaker, reporter, and producer. So at the moment, I am presenting on Superbikes for Eurosport. So I love that. The season has just ended. So I go kind of around the country and to Europe presenting live motorbike racing, which is super fun. One of my favorite jobs. I also do a lot of esports. So almost at the end of the European E-Tour, which is virtual golf. I go out to Copenhagen every month to film that. So it's the best gamers on golf. WGT is the game. They come together. A lot of FIFA. I'm heavily involved in FIFA. I commentate on athletics. Lots of different sports. Basically, I'm sure we'll get into it, but super varied.
Yeah, really well-rounded. We'll come back to that. But first off, our icebreaker question that we ask every guest. When you were younger, like a child, what did you want to be when you were older?
I wanted to be a dolphin trainer at Disney World.
Oh, okay. How did you get that in your head?
I have no idea. Me and my friend, Sophie, her name was, best friend at school. We went to Disney, actually, very lucky, together when we were 12. And we loved the water parks. And we kind of went there. And we said, oh, you know what? Should we kind of come back here on our gap year and either be lifeguards, which I did go and train out to be a lifeguard, never used it, which is one of my kind of regrets in life, or we went to SeaWorld. I know there's a lot of controversy around SeaWorld, but we went to SeaWorld and I thought, you know what? A dolphin trainer would be something else. So they were the two kind of things, lifeguard at Disney or dolphin trainer at SeaWorld. Got on the track to one of them in terms of lifeguard, but never really came off.
Did you ever really think seriously about it, or was it a dream that kind of died relatively fast?
Well, I'm going to say the lifeguard, yes, because I did actually go through pretty rigorous training to become a lifeguard. I don't know if you've ever done kind of, I guess you have at school or at swimming lessons when you put on your pajamas and you jump in the pool and you have to go and tow your best mate to the end. I did that for like 12 weeks to try and be a lifeguard. I got my badge and just never used it. And I should have done because lifeguards get paid really well. It's £10 an hour back in the day.
Yeah, they get paid really well. I had a friend in sixth form who was a lifeguard. I think he worked for 3 years and went in the pool twice.
Yeah.
So really well paid for,
Just
not
listen to the music.
Really doing too much.
Totally.
So you never really followed the dolphin training route?
No, didn't follow the dolphin training route. I did get to swim with dolphins. Again, very lucky when I went to Mexico about 12, 14 years ago with my family. So that's as close as I got to becoming a dolphin trainer. But, there's always a pipe dream. I mean, that was mine.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's got to have something a bit, out of normal just to dream about.
Yeah, that was my out there dream. And if I was being serious about what I wanted to do, as I got older, I wanted to be an elite athlete. I wanted to be a runner. So I was a junior GB athlete at 800 meters. And I thought that was going to be something I did and went to the Olympics and all this stuff. Because I got selected to be trained by Dame Kelly Holmes. So I was on this little camp called On Camp with Kelly. So she selected like the best up and coming middle distance runners in the country. And we kind of got mentored and coached by Kelly, which was great. Like she was super supportive, but again, quite a difficult job to come by, if you don't have all the right skills. So that was kind of another dream that got a little bit closer to doing because, I guess I was semi-professional. I used to get some funding and I had some great support from some sportswear brands. But again, it's just not that any job isn't, but very difficult and one that kind of came to a bit of an end for me. And now I still kind of run for the love of it. And we can talk about that a bit later as well.
So the dream job's there was a path there to be followed, but you didn't get too far down it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I got in my running career, let's call it that, like inverted commas, I got the silver medal at the Commonwealth Youth Games behind, you might know Caster Semenya. So again, she's quite a well-known South African athlete. Again, has had some controversial stories around her. But yeah, so she was a world champion. 800 meters. She went on to become world champion. So I was a second to her, and then kind of just, you know how it is, like got carried away, fell off the wagon a little bit, and didn't pursue that. And my coaches always just kind of say, that's a talent wasted. Well, I'm sorry. I went on to do something I equally loved.
That is still incredibly impressive, though. So going from like the dream jobs back down to reality, what was the first job you ever did?
Oh, the first job I ever did. This was actually really hard one to think of. But then I was speaking to my sister and she's like, do you remember that time? I was like, oh yeah, thanks for reminding me, because it was good and bad. I mean, everyone's first jobs are. So it was something called a test purchaser. So basically, for people who don't know, you're kind of like an undercover cop. Sounds really random, but you basically go and try and call out companies or independent stores that are selling alcohol to underage people. It sounds like I'm a complete snitch. I know everyone who's going to be watching and listening to this is like, we hate that girl. But, it is obviously super important because, there's a law there for a reason. And, if you're selling alcohol to the wrong people, it could get into the wrong hands, be misused, whatever. So, that was my first job. So basically, we had a little chat off camera. You kind of knew what it was already, which was really cool because your friend did it. But I think my mum saw it in the local paper, like in the little free ad section, like recruiting. And I must have been about 15 at the time. And like, hadn't had a job, and she said it would just be good for you to get out into the real world. And I was really quite shy as a child, so didn't really know what it was about. And I remember this lady from the council coming around to vet me, because you had to look your age. So you had to look 15. Let's say I was 15. You couldn't look like close to buying alcohol rules, like 18, whatever. So I was fine, and I signed off to be this test purchaser. So basically what it meant is I'd go around in a car with a police officer and someone from the council, and they'd have a list of different, again, superstores or little local stores that had been selling or known to have sold alcohol to underage people. So they're already on like the red list. So they've already been naughty. And we'd go there, and the process would be, again, you said your mate did this, so I love that someone from the council would go out and vet the store. She'd be like, come back in and go, Rach, so the alcohol cabinet is as you go in on your left, and then the counter is to your right. It's pretty quiet in there, so, good. And I'd be like, what do I buy? And she said, oh, what would you like to buy? I'm like, I'm 15. Like, I'm really good. I don't know. Go and buy like a pack of Bacardi Breezes. So I'd go in there and try and buy this. But you had to be really truthful. So I go up. It's quite nerve-wracking. You're like walking in there thinking, I know this is naughty and I shouldn't be allowed to do this. It's breaking the law, but this is my job. So take the pack of alcohol, whatever it was, 6-pack of beer or Bacardi Breezer, up to the counter and just say, I want to buy this. And the person always looked at you like they knew they weren't or shouldn't be selling you it. So I can remember a time when like a guy in this particular shop went, well, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 15. It looks at you really weirdly. Well, why do you want this? I'm like, I'm thirsty. And it's like, what, you're thirsty for Bacardi Breeze at like 1 a.m. on a Saturday? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, okay. You got any ID? I'm like, no, because you don't. And then you, like in your head, you're like willing them to give it to you, even though you know they're going to get another red tick and it's going to be really bad for their business. And they would give it to you. And the amount of companies that sold it to me, knowing I was 15, I didn't have any ID, my excuse was that I was thirsty, like was absolutely ridiculous. So I'd walk out, I'd put it in the car with the person from the council and the police officer, and then the police officer would go back in and show them a picture of me and say, you've just sold X to Rachel. Well, they wouldn't say my name, but she's underage, she's 15, we could take you to court. And I mean, I did this for quite a few times until basically it just got too much, because I got told it was like Christmas Eve I did it. Why was I working on Christmas Eve? This is a sign of me. I'm a workaholic. I went into a shop, and this lady who was selling it at the time had been on this list for quite a while. So she was known in the area for selling underage. And she again sold to me, and came out, and they went back in, and she broke down, was crying and said, I've ruined her Christmas. And I was like, that's it, I'm out. I cannot ruin any more people's like Christmases and lives. But It was really cool, and it really opened my eyes to what kind of goes on. And for me, if I wanted to, my dad really wanted to be a police officer, but he was 5'4" and under the he's very short. And at the time, you had to be a certain height to be a police officer. But for people that like wanted to go into that, I think that would be well cool. Like it felt like you're like little James Bond, or like, you know, going undercover and you know, trying to catch people out. Okay, there's a good and bad side to it, but you know, that was my first job.
That's exactly what the girl from my sixth form did. I knew a girl, I told you earlier, but for the listeners, I knew a girl from sixth form who did the exact same thing, and now she's a policewoman. So
well, cool, right?
Yeah, it is a well-known pipeline.
But random, but people probably don't know that exists, right?
What did your friends think of it at the time? Were they like here for it, or were they a bit like, oh, well, you're shutting down all the shops we're trying to shop at?
Exactly what you just said there. They were like, why are you like doing that job? Like, you know, you just preventing us all from buying alcohol. I'm like, well, yeah, but you know, like I'm doing it because I want to do it, and you know, it's a job for me. But totally, even when I told my boyfriend this, that was coming on, he was like, what are you gonna say? And I said that, and he was like, we hated people like you. I was like, okay, don't rub it in. This is what I'm going to talk about.
It was a friend of mine in sixth form that did it, and we gave her a bit of grief.
I bet
for it,
you
to
did.
be fair.
Yeah.
And she would never ever tell us which one she was going to as well, which was even worse. She wouldn't even help us out in that way.
No, you weren't allowed to do that. It was very like hush hush, but hey ho. I think I did like 10 years later. I'm like, Mum, that was a store that used to sell me alcohol. She's like, oh, was it indeed?
I'm guessing you had to finish that about, what, 16 years old?
Yeah, I didn't. I probably did it for about a year because again, coming to that Christmas Eve, and I was like, I can't ruin anyone else's life. So yeah, I did that for about a year, but it was a really good confidence booster. Like, you know, you were out all day in a car with two random people. So, you know, if you could sit in a car and talk to two random people all day, kind of setting you up for what's going to come, you know, in the real world. So yeah, just did that for about a year, and then kind of went more down the route of what I wanted to do, like sporty stuff, which I then transitioned to going, oh, you know what, I really want to work in the media. So I got myself like an internship at the BBC, because I thought, right, I know what I want to do now. Love my sport, not going to make it as an athlete, but I want to do, you know, something in this industry. So I thought, well, you know, I'm getting more confident, I can talk. Like my friend said, there's this thing called the BBC Kickoff Sports Reporter Scheme. And so I applied for that and I got it. And basically it was like a summer internship to be trained up to be a sports reporter. Again, loosely training.
So you really like had to start at the bottom with TV.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Is there one that sticks out to you as like the worst?
Oh gosh, now I can remember one. So I was working on this show called, was it May the Best House Win? Oh, no. Happy Families, it was called. It was an observational documentary. So, you know, when they put all the cameras in someone's house and basically like watch them for a week.
Yep.
I was in Nottingham, I think, and a runner. So basically, I think it was called a casting runner or something. So basically, anybody that came on any of the cameras like outside the house, I had to run up to them and go, you've just been on TV. Can you consent to say we might use that clip? Monotonous. And it was like February in Nottingham and it was snowing and I was stood outside for like 12-hour shifts. There was a night and a day person. Me and this guy would switch over. I did this for a week and I was blooming cold firstly, but it basically was a really dodgy area. So there was this murderer known in the area.
Right, okay.
Who everyone knew on the production team, they're like, watch out, there's this really dodgy guy. Like, don't get too close to him. I'm quite friendly and I became quite friendly with this apparent murderer and he used to bring me presents. I remember like he bought me a couple of like stolen DVDs, like a random hat, like random stuff. And they're like, oh my God, like do not get too close to this guy. Anyway, we caught him on like TV, like stealing from the shop that we were like filming and stuff. He was a bit dodgy, but the area was dodgy. And I remember, this is really bad, standing on the street with these papers, like these consent papers, like maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night, doing like waiting for my shift to end. And this car pulled up alongside me and was like, oh, hey love, like how much do you charge? And I was like, thinking they were asking me about my job. And I was like, oh, I think I'm on like £70. Like, oh, you're well cheap, get in. And I was like,
Ooh.
Oh my God, they thought I was working the streets. And like the production company could see this happening on the cameras, like, oh my God, go and get Rachel. Like she's about to get into someone's car. Obviously I then clicked, but I was like, they thought I was genuinely working the streets. I was like, this is so much. So then they changed my shifts. Like, you're in the day, you can't be in the night. This is well dodged. So the job was fine, but the experiences that came out of it was, again, quite hype.
Must have been quite a good blooper for the show.
I mean, I don't know. I thought they thought it was hilarious, but I was like, oh my gosh, like, Mom, do you remember this is what just happened to me today? She's like, why are you working there? Like, come home. I'm like, experience.
Slightly traumatizing.
Slightly traumatizing.
So what about the jobs before you got involved in TV? Is there one of those that sticks out to you as the worst?
Oh, gosh, this is going back as well. One that sticks out as the worst. Maybe not, like, they were all okay. You know, there's obviously parts of every job that you don't particularly like. But I'd say, like, apart from ruining people's Christmases, I had quite a good experience.
So that's the horror story. That was the worst moment you had. Like,
yeah, I don't really think, you know, compared to a lot of people's, I don't think I've quite came away unscathed. That's quite lucky.
so if you had to rate that job out of 5, we're basically creating like a bit of a leaderboard
Yep.
to find out which celebrity.
Oh, I'm
had the
losing compared
worst
to who
job.
you've had for sure. Five being
5 being the best.
the best and 1 being the worst. It's 2.
That is the lowest we've had so far.
Really?
Yeah, I think everyone else has been like they've played it relatively safe.
You know what it
2.5,
was?
3.
It made you feel like you were a victim. Like you were the villain. Like I came away going, oh, I've just like ruined that person's day. Like it made you feel awful.
So we're coming on to the part of the show now which we call listener questions. Basically, we just let everyone know that you're coming on and we let them submit questions for me to ask you. So I've got them all written down here.
Okay. I hope they're not too difficult.
You have seemed to present basically every sport.
Yeah.
Like football, hockey, rugby, tennis, wrestling, superbiking. Do you have a favourite?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it changes on, I guess, what I'm working on, but I have found my absolute love for motorbikes. Yeah.
How did you get into that?
I was doing snooker for Eurosport. How random. And then they said, oh, we quite like you. Would you like to come for a screen test for motorbikes? And I said, no, I don't think so. Like, oh, but we, think you could be a good addition to the team. Anyway, decided to go for the screen test, done a bit of research, and they were like, do you want the job? I was like, sure. I've done 4 seasons now. And,
oh, wow. So you've been there a while.
I love it. Like, it's great. I now ride a motorbike as well. And yeah, good. Well, I guess once you get embedded into a sport, you know all the stories, you know all the people. And, it's a bit like a family. You go walk around a paddock and everyone knows you. And so it kind of feels like home. So that's like my top. Athletics is always going to have a love because of my kind of history in that. Football, I mean, we're a football culture, aren't we, in the UK? I'm a Nottingham Forest fan. So for my sins at the moment, yeah, we're a middle ground. We're better than we were.
I'm a Newcastle fan, so I can't really say much.
Whatever. Wrestling was a flash in the pan. I mean, that was random. But yeah, like I like to try myself. Like I became a jockey this year, so I now like horse riding. So, everything's quite cool.
So you're willing just to try anyway?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So you said you used to run for GB with the Commonwealth, and that was middle distance?
That was 800 metres, yeah, middle distance is class as.
Okay, and on your Instagram, like you seem to have got into a bit more marathon running. Why would you do that to yourself?
No, good question. Which has no actual reasonable answer. So I did 800 metres and then I got asked, I think, by Adidas would I like to run a marathon? And I remember saying no, and it was my cousin randomly was like, they've asked you to run London Marathon. That's awesome. Like, do it. You might never get to do it again. And best thing I've ever done. Like, it was amazing. If you ever run London Marathon, or ever get the opportunity to do so, go and do it.
I can say I will never, ever run the London Marathon.
Everybody needs to run a marathon in their life. Dean Carnassa's ultra running marathon legend from America. He ran 50 marathons in 50 states in 50 days.
Wow.
And he is phenomenal. He also, I've chatted to him a bit, done a couple of interviews with him, and he's like, everyone should run a marathon. I'm like, you're talking my language. So I've just signed up to do Paris in April. So I'm currently training for that, which, I'm only up to 10 miles at the moment. I did 10 miles yesterday. And it'll progress to 22 before the 26.2. So it's quite a long way. It hurts, but I do it. And I just, running is still a part of my life. And I've kind of now made it a job. I'm like an Under Armour ambassador now. So I run with a team and they kind of, give us clothes and give us cool opportunities and stuff. So that kind of also makes it a bit easier. I'm like, oh, I'm now getting It's kind of done full circle from like running as a junior, and now I'm kind of still running like and getting paid to run. So like, you can make almost these days, like I truly think this, you can almost make anything you like doing into a job. Like there's so many avenues to do it. That's the beauty of now. And I don't think, and also I never really applied for a job. I've always said, what do I want to do? Oh, I'm going to try and find out how to do that. So I think there's so many ways of, getting into things. I know I've gone completely off track of your marathon, but it kind of went to the Under Armour thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it's brutal, but do it.
Yeah, I think for me, like, especially at this time of year, so you must be training now. It's cold, it's wet, I'm in bed. I am not convincing myself to run 10 miles. No way. How do you do that?
Good question. I actually use Strava
Okay,
and like social media for inspiration. So I'll go on Strava with a couple of girls, like my running mates who I follow. I'm like, oh gosh, they've done 15 miles today. Like, I don't look at that and say I have to do that because I know what my plan is. But I'm like, oh, I need to get out. I haven't run that many miles, and it gets a bit addictive. My Strava, I'm like, oh, I need to kind of get up to X amount. But that keeps you motivated. And my motto as a junior was always, train hard, race easy. And I think that's, again, a good kind of motto to take on in your career. If you're prepped for something, the job's going to be so much easier. So
yeah, it makes sense. So you were kind of like almost peer pressuring yourself into doing it.
Totally. And I want to have a nice day in Paris and kind of come away going, that was so cool, rather than, oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. So,
Will you not be doing that anyway?
Yeah. I've been running like my whole life. I've been running since I was 12. So, touch wood, my body knows that I like to put it through pain on a daily basis.
So it's just, you have to, basically.
Just have to. It's part of me. My first Hotmail account was Runner Rachel. So I'm like, I am a runner.
Oh, so it's
I'm
always
Rachel
been
the runner.
part of you, yeah.
Totally.
What are you working on currently?
So just finished the Superbike season, which has been fab. So we just wrapped up season 4 of that, which was lovely because after 2020, I was in a mask and a visor and couldn't speak to anyone. So that was really cool. FIFA 22 has just come out. So we're really heavily into like everything FIFA at the moment. I hosted a tournament a couple of weeks back for EA, which was a FIFA challenge, which actually paired up pro FIFA players with pro footballers. So Diogo Jota won it with someone called Tex, who's a big FIFA player, which was quite cool. And he's also a Liverpool fan, so it made it quite nice. But we had some great characters on there. We had Akinfenwa on there as well, which is quite cool. So that's fun. We had a couple of Chelsea guys. I think we had Callum Hudson-Odoi and did we have Cesar Azpilicueta? Anyway, I can't remember. There was loads of them like joining in, but that was really cool. So I've got quite a lot of FIFA events coming up. Do a lot of athletics commentating. So that kind of always fills my time. There's like the indoor season they do with that at the moment. I also kind of, presenting side of things, I guess my year kind of goes from athletics to Wimbledon to Superbikes to doing football stuff to doing esports. It kind of takes quite a lot of my time, and but it's all good. Like I like my sport, so it keeps me busy.
How long have you been involved with the esports side of things?
Esports, I got asked if I wanted to join in after, always like loving, I don't know, Bond on Nintendo. Capture the Flag was like my favorite, or Doom. Do you remember Doom on PC?
Yeah, I remember
that was
Doom.
Awesome. But so I've always kind of like dabbled, but I think I wasn't aware that esports was becoming such a big thing. And it was FIFA 19, and EA just got in touch and was like, oh, we need someone to host. It was called the FIFA Ratings Awards. So when the ratings that year for the guys, footballers, got announced, and I had to go and host a event announcing these awards. And then they were like, oh, actually, would you like to come and present our entire series they have going on? Which I was like, hell yeah. And it was great. And it got me into this amazing world, which I now present a lot of different esports. So I do the golf, I do motorsport, I do like an esports magazine show, and the football. So all esports, which is crazy.
And those esports competitions as well, like you said, they've boomed. I think kind of the, maybe stigma might be too hard of a word, but like the idea of the people that compete in it are kind of like, young adults, men mostly, kind of nerdy. Is that Like, is that true? Or is it a bit more like upbeat and a bit more like social than you'd think it would be?
Yeah, social for sure. The communities are amazing. Like everyone's really good friends with everyone. Nerdy, depends what game you play. FIFA, no. Golf that I do, totally, because there's a lot of calculations. It's really mathsy. So you have to like calculate the lie of the grass, the elevation to the hole, the length of the hole, how much power in the shot. Like that's really nerdy. But FIFA, it's just about the grind. Like if you're going to grind out the game every day, then you're pretty much going to, get better. At the moment, I'm playing women's international mode pretty much daily. Like I don't let myself play too much, but you can see yourself getting better straight away. I think I came here before and I played 6-0 this morning. I was like, nah, like just it's about the grind and it's a super sociable, I guess, sport to be involved in because you're constantly playing with your mates, like online. You can play globally anytime you want with anybody in the world, which, means that these communities are massive. So a lot of the FIFA guys on the off season, which is kind of like September time, they all go on holiday. Like classic like footballs, they're all in Mykonos, like having a party. So I don't think so. Like it's different. I do a lot of the sports simulation esports. So maybe if you're doing COD or Fortnite or World of Warcraft or something, it's a little bit different. But the sports simulation ones, they're pretty cool.
Except from the golfers who are cracking out their calculators.
But motorsport guys, they're also cool because again, they're literally on a pathway to becoming like a driver because drivers, like Formula One drivers, use sim racing, which is basically esports, to practice. So it's crazy, like the skills these guys have, and they get, offered like deals with Mercedes or Red Bull, and then you're like, whoa, you're basically a driver, and they get to go on the proper sim rigs of the F1 drivers. You're like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
It definitely has exploded in the last 3 years.
Nuts. Like I love it. And I just think at the moment it's just kind of going up. And I just want to get more females involved. You said it's pretty male dominated. So I like being involved because people are like, oh, right, you work in esports. I'm like, yeah, it's really cool. Love it. So it's really good fun.
And is that a trend that's happening? Are you seeing more women get involved?
Yeah. I mean, basically, females don't always like to tell people they're involved because there's still a lot of like a big stigma around females gaming. So quite a lot of the time, which can be the case when you game, you don't have to reveal your identity. You can be XYZ gamer, whatever it is. You can make up a name, can't you? So a lot of people don't like to disclose their gender. Hopefully that's changing. I'm trying to change it. I've just kind of co-founded an event called the She Sports Cup, which is an all-female FIFA tournament. So that's basically trying to create a safe space, trying to create more opportunities, trying to give a platform or a pathway for FIFA players who are females to get to become a pro. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. And we've had 2 events this year already. And it's, been kind of really celebrated so far. The girls that have been involved really enjoyed it. And we have our 3rd one in December. So, I'm like trying. I've been involved in quite a lot of women in games, kind of different platform. I hosted the Women in Games and Esports Awards, which was highlighting some like super cool females working in the space and, from developers to coders to gamers to streamers. Like there's so many amazing opportunities out there for females in esports or gaming, but you just don't realize. So it's great to be working in these spaces where you can see different people who have like made their own games. Like,
that's crazy.
From scratch. You're like, you've coded the entire thing. You're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. Like, I'm jealous. I completely respect you. So there are so many cool jobs. You don't have to just be a gamer or a streamer, but you might have like a love of it, but don't have the ability to be a pro gamer. But yeah, the girls just need to be encouraged a little bit more because the opportunities are there, but just few and far between. So trying to create a few more.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, coming on to encouraging people, what advice would you give either a younger version of yourself or someone like that who's trying to get involved in presenting, whether that's esports, traditional sports, or any media in general?
Yeah, advice, experience. I guess it's trying to get experience, which is the toughest kind of, I guess, advice to give. But in this day and age, you can basically do whatever you want to do before you get the job. So it's being a presenter, you have to be online and have a presence. So it would be, practicing speaking to camera, making TikTok videos, making Instagram lives, creating a couple of reels, like showing off your personality, little things like that. Because if you're going to go and ask somebody, a producer or a director or someone for a job, they're going to go, well, how do we know you can present? Here, I can show you. I've already done it. So it's kind of doing it and then showing someone, that I have these skills. And it is doing your research. Like people go, oh, have you got a contact for someone on TV? I'm like, well, what area? What do you want to work on? Oh, I don't really know. Well, what's your passion? Like, what TV shows do you love doing or YouTube videos do you love watching? And then go and look at how they started and follow their journey. Everyone's is different. I was a bit production-y, hence like Big Brother running and all this stuff before I got into what I wanted to do. And I think that still might change, but it's also not giving up. That was the example I gave you about keep emailing somebody. Find the right person. And if you really want it, you'll make it happen and do what they say. They kept saying you haven't got enough experience. Oh, go and get some more experience. So it's kind of perseverance, finding the place that you love, doing what you want to do and having an example to show. And just not giving up because it's tough, but worth it if you want to do it.
Do you think it's kind of easier in that regard, with the social media side? Like you can just make a TikTok or start making Instagram reels, as opposed to probably when you were getting involved where that was less of a benefit that you could be like, oh, I want this job and I've done all of this stuff on my social medias.
Yes and no, because I say yes because there are so many platforms, but then no because there are so many people doing it. There's so much competition. And I do think like that's great because then there are so many YouTube channels that will, give you a chance. But that comes with more people doing it. So I actually don't know how to answer that. I was probably in the middle as well. Not quite like 10, 15 years ago when you had your Claire Balding, Gabby Logan kind of broadcasters, which I looked up to. That was just linear TV. I was in the middle when a few people were just trying YouTube and stuff. And then there's the guys now that they see it all. And there's so many different ways to go into it. But it's just looking at who you want to be like, probably. Not copying their style or anything, but going, oh, how did they go? What was their journey? Because everyone's different, but they kind of all get there to the same point in the end.
And do you have any tips for anyone who is starting out on that social media? Like anything you've learned about doing that kind of thing?
Oh, I guess they like you to be yourself. So, if you want to be a presenter, presenters are just possibly like, I always say to people, maybe a 10% extra version of what you are when you're sat at home on your sofa, because you can't obviously be that. You obviously got to, be you welcoming people. People are welcoming you into their houses or into their cars or wherever they're watching, So you have to be like super friendly. But also you have to know your stuff. There's so many people that I really want to be a football presenter. I'm like, do you have a football team? No. I was like, well, probably should go and get one and read around the subject or whatever it is, music, cooking, like fashion. You need to have a bit of a passion for what you do. Otherwise it's going to wear off very quickly and you're going to not really enjoy it. But yeah, just go and make some content. Like, you'll probably find it's fun. Like,
oh yeah, I really
enjoy doing it. And then that leads to opportunities. If you're showing people that you're enjoying doing something, that will come across and that personality will come across, and then you'll be much more, hireable. Someone will come and, employ you. But yeah, just being across all the different platforms probably as well. Like, again, you can go and Google it. What's on trend at the moment? Which social media platforms doing the business? Probably TikTok. And have a go at that. If it doesn't work, do another one. Keep going, because nothing happens overnight. TikTok possibly does.
So it's kind of just passion and personality. They're the two main factors. Yeah,
I think so. I didn't really start mine out on that, so I don't really have like the best advice for it, but that's what people are doing now. You can start a podcast in your bedroom. You can start an Instagram page wherever you are. So all these things, if you want to be a broadcaster, it is there. You're the best possible time to put your anything out there. Collaborate with people as well. I think that's really important. If someone's got a bit of a following, go and follow them and ask to share a video or do a video. if you want to get into that kind of thing, that probably helps. And just reach out. People want to help you. So DM some people and ask for some advice. What should I do? How do I make a video? Get some good lighting.
Just be persistent with it. So final question. With the benefit of hindsight, is there anything you would do differently? Any sports you wish you hadn't presented or anything like that?
Hindsight, what would I have done differently? We got another hour for a podcast? No, I'm joking. I don't really know because I had so many great opportunities. Maybe focused on one earlier. Like if I'd known I'd loved superbikes earlier, got into that 4 or 5 years ago. But then that's about the journey, and I think every job is about the journey. Like I always say, to people, they're like, "Oh, how would you describe yourself?" I was like, "I'm on kind of the scenic route." You don't have to get there within a year or 2 years. Where is there? Like, what is it? What is success in your job? So I'm on the scenic route and enjoying every opportunity that's given to me in every job because they're all so different and they're all really cool. So I don't really have a hindsight. Just keep doing what you're doing. But yeah, possibly got in biking earlier because I love it. But that's probably my only regret. But I found it now.
So take your time and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, totally.
That's some good advice to give. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. You can follow Rachel over at Rachel_Stringer on Instagram or Rach Stringer on Twitter, I think.
Correct.
Perfect. And thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this, then please make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes. If you are really feeling the love, then please leave us a 5-star review. It really does help us out. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok too at @StudentBeans. See you next time.